מסכת זבחים, פרק שביעי, page 69. We start 6 lines from the top of the page. Just some words of introduction. The Torah tells us in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, Parashat Acharei Mot, chapter 17, verse 15. It's the difference between, when it's come to law of purity and impurity, between Tum'at Nevela Behema, which means if you have a domesticated animal, the person touch the body of the animal, so therefore Maga Umasa, touching the body of the animal or carrying the animal, carries or transmitted ritual impurity. Versus Nevelat of Tahor, if you take a bird pure, that befitting as a kosher, as a tahor, as a pure bird, if a person touch it, so maga umasa, touching, carrying, do not carry ritual impurity, only tum'at beit habli'ah, only if a person get it to his throat, swallow it, as the Torah mentioned, kol nefesh asher tochal nevela, etc., and the derivative chayut nefesh is by swallowing, by having it. So therefore metam'a et habolea, the person who swallow it, that carry ritual impurity, including his garment, etc. Now it's very fascinating and noticed when it's come to a carcass, to a dead body of animal. You can have something that is impure, davar tameh, shelo metameh. For example, if you take an eagle. So eagle, it's, by the Torah definition, it's one of those impure bird, not pure, not kosher, befitting as a food bird. So therefore, it doesn't carry ritual impurity if it's a dead body of a eagle. Only of tahor, only for example dove, anything that is by Torah definition, it's considering as a animal that can be befitting for potentially to be pure as a food, then of tahor metameh, it can carry ritual impurity. Of tameh lo metameh, a ritual impure, meaning a bird that it's by the Torah definition not befitting as a consumption, is lo metameh, it doesn't carry ritual impurity. So if a person obviously ate something that is not fitting, he's in violation, etc., etc., and even if it is prohibited, it doesn't carry the ritual impurity. So in that case, hypothetically, he does not have the issue of entering the domain of the temple. So before we go to that, and we're going to delve with that in Mitzvah Hashem later on, we start on page 69, 6 lines from the top of the page. Here we have a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yitzchak, that he received a tradition from his teachers. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Shamati Shtayim, Kibalti Mirabotai, I received a tradition from my teacher, 2 important halachot when it's come to a service by a non-kohen. Achat kmitzat zar, ve'achat melikat zar. So, as we learned yesterday and day before yesterday, we have a meal offering. And part of the ritual is the handful that the Kohen needs to take and taking it and burning it on the altar. That's part of the biblical ritual for a Kohen. So if someone who's not priest, not Kohen, does this job, which is handful from a meal offering by a non-priest for burning at the altar, or the other important halacha, if someone do the pinching of a bird offering, as we learned day before yesterday and yesterday, that's part of the ritual requirement from the priesthood, from the Kohen. So Rabbi Yitzchak heard from his teachers, achat tered ve'achat lo tered. One halacha, I remember my teacher said that if it's ascend, meaning if it was brought to the altar, should descend from the altar. And the other one, if it's already ascend, in a hindsight, it should stay there. The problem I have, Rabbi Yitzchak said, is I'm not sure which one needs to be descend if ascend, and which one we leave it alone on the altar. Is that applied to kmitza, to the work with the handful, or that applied to melika, the pinching of the bird? So Chizkiah came in, and he said, I'll reconcile this question from a logical reasoning. So he said, mistabra kmitza. He said it's reasoning to say that removal of the handful, the offering shall be descend if it's made by a non-priest, teired, should descend. Meaning if it's ascend, it should descend. Versus melika, pinching the offering, if it was made by a non-priest, leave it alone, lo teired, shall not descend from the altar. So the Gemarah challenged that. What do you mean by that? They ask, Maishna melika de yeshna bevama, kmitza namei yeshna bevama. The Gemarah asks, really? What's the real difference between pinching by a non-Kohen that will allow the bird to be sacrificed if it ascended unto the altar, and versus if a non-priest take the handful, removal of the handful, and use it? What's the difference? So here Rashi explained, you see it later in the Mishnah, page 113b, he said that type of rite was befitting, that was used as a bamot, as a temporary altar before the first high priest, Aharon HaKohen, sanctified. Versus kmitza, the handful, that even lechatchila, the first place, it's okay. So why you tell me that if it's ascend, it should descend? Because אפשר לקמוץ מנחה בבמה, you can do a handful of the mincha offering in the altar. So it is true that it's in a Beit HaMikdash. In Mikdash it's pasul, it's not befitting. But im alta lo teired, why you tell me that if it's ascend, should descend? So why you differentiate, in short, between handful of mincha versus pinching? V'chi teima, if you tell me that according to Chizkiah, ein mincha bevama, this is something we're going to learn on page 113, that there is a notion that said that meal offerings was not sacrificed on a private altar, as meal offerings were brought before the construction of the temple only on the altar in the tabernacle, and therefore you said ein ofot name bivama. If you tell me that mincha is rak b'mikdash, so therefore ofot, so bird, also not on a private either. The Amar Rav Sheshet, that Rav Sheshet says, לדברי האומר יש מנחה בבמה. If you go by the Tana Kama at the Mishnah, that he says, אין עבודת הגשה בבמת יחיד. So you derive from that they have mincha. So the one who said that the meal offering was sacrificed on private altar, yesh ofot bebama. So therefore birds were sacrificed on the private altar. לדברי האומר אין מנחה, to one who said that there is no sacrificial, no meal offering was sacrificed on a private altar, ein ofot my ta'ama, there is no bird was sacrificed there either. What's the reason for this? If you follow the Torah describing the offering brought at Mount Sinai before the tabernacle was built, they mention זבחים ולא מנחות, זבחים ולא עופות. So they said that the slaughter of offering, which is animal offering, Zevachim is like the name of this tractate. It's the animal offering that was slaughtered. Since they are slaughtered, it's called Zevachim, Nizbachim, but not bird. Zevachim velo ofot. Rashi said, based on the pasuk in Shmot 24:5, they said Veisbechu Zevachim shlamim laHashem. So it means after they build the tabernacle or after the temple, then they are prohibited those temporarily altar. But he said you have the obligation to bring the also offering that's sanctified prior to that, at the time that bishat heter bamot, the time they permitted those private altar. So basically you see that Zevachim kreivim babama, but not menachot and not ofot. So in short, what the Chidushei Agrees explain, you either said both yes or both no. Either both imalta tered or both the other way around. Ela ema, you have to say that the reason for Chizkiah, that even you tell me that they are both mincha and ofot in the Bema, that even both pinching the nape of a bird offering and removing the handful of a meal offering by a non-Kohen are valid on a private altar. So the halachot of meal offering sacrifice on the private altar cannot be compared to those of meal offering sacrificed in the temple. Ein kiddush bechlei sharet b'mincha babama. So the meal offering sacrifice on a private altar, there is no consecration in a service vessel of the handful removal from it. However, the other way around, in the holy temple, the handful must always be consecrated in the kli sharet, in a service vessel. Then the Mishnah said, malak bismol o balayla. Remember, we learned in the previous daf, if the Kohen pinched with his left hand, or if he pinched at night, so the offering not render one ritually impure when in his throat. Tanu Rabbanan. That's in Parashat Achremot, in Torat Kohanim. יכולתהם מליקה שהיא לפנים מטמאה בגדים בבית הבליעה. So he said that when you have invalid situation, that you have invalid pinching that occurred inside the temple courtyard, such as pinching with the left hand or pinching at night, will cause the offering to render the garments of one who swallowed it ritually impure when it is in the throat. Talmud lomar neveila. So therefore we go by the pasuk in Parashat Achrei Mot, in book of Vayikra, chapter 17, verse 15, that said, every soul that eats a nevela, a dead body of animal, shall be impure until the evening. So you see here that bird offering whose naps was pinched inside the temple courtyard are not considered nevela. So the Gemarah argued and said, Haname, this type of pinching, this type of melika, nevelai. the offering whose nape was pinched inside the temple courtyard, also a nevela. So they said, mat reifa she'en materet et ha'isur. So they said, when they used the word treifa, the pasuk said, every soul that eat a nevela or treifa. Treifa is an animal with a wound that will cause it to die within 12 months. So it's derived from this pasuk that just as having the status of treifa does not render permitted any forbidden bird, ma treifa she'ein materet et ha'isur, af kol she'ein materet ha'isur. So too, any type of death that does not render permitted by any forbidden bird makes the animal a nevela with regard to tum'ah, to ritual impurity. Yatsa melika. So as a result, invalid pinching, shehi lifnim, that the avodah, it's performed inside the temple courtyard, that's excluded. Ho'il vehi materet et ha'isur, since it make a forbidden bird permitted to sacrifice such a disqualified offering if it ascended to the altar, whereas it was prohibited to sacrifice such a disqualified offering if it was not pinched. Ein metam'a bgadim bebeit avli'ah. So the meat of such an offering, therefore, does not make the garment of one who swallowed it ritually impure when it is in the throat. So Chidushei agrees, try to prove that even according to Rabbi Yehuda, that hold Melikat Laila Tered, he hold that is considered Psulo B'Kodesh. It need to be burned immediately. It's not like Kodashim shemetu shenikbarim. The Rambam said in Ilchot Avot HaTum'ot, chapter 3, a bird offering that was pinched inside the temple courtyard and was fit to sacrifice at the time of pinching, that had no blemish, is ritually pure. So now the Gemarah said in Hekesh, Hevi Hamolek Ketz Chefes Siman Kodashim Bachutz Umolek Hullin Ben Bimefnim Men Bibachutz. So this principle includes two other cases, invalid pinching, for which here the Gemarah will give two words. It's Ketz Chefetz. It's a bakery acronym to one who pinches a neck of sacrificial bird outside the temple courtyard, and one who pinches the neck of not-sacred bird, whether inside the temple courtyard or outside of it. So they said, "Ho'il ve'en matirin et ha'isur metam'in bgadin bet habli'ah." Since these offering do not render permitted any forbidden bird, because this type of offering may not be sacrificed even if it brought unto the altar, they render the garments of one who swallowed them ritually impure when they are in the throat. Tanya Idach, who learn another braita, יכול תהא שחיטת חולין לפנים וקודשים בין מבפנים ובין מבחוץ מטמא הבית הבליעה, תלמוד לומר נבלה. One might have thought that the slaughter of a non-sacred bird inside the temple courtyard, or the slaughter of sacrificial birds, whether inside or outside of it, will cause their meat to render the garment of one who swallows it ritually impure when it's in the throat. So therefore you have the pasuk that said, every soul that eats a nevela shall be impure until the evening. So birds that have been slaughtered in this manner are not considered nevela, and so they're not impart tum'ah, ritual impurity. So the Gemarah argued, and they said, Haname nevelai? Isn't the bird that slaughtered in one of these ways also considered nevela? Ela Talmud lomar treifa. So that's what we learn, what we mentioned earlier, the pasuk. Every soul that eats a nevela or treifa shall be impure until the evening. And we derive it as follows. Ma treifa shava mi befnim kevachutz. The same way as you have a status of treifa. If the bird is slaughtered inside the temple courtyard, as it is if the bird slaughtered outside, which is the forbidden, the same way, of kol shavot bifnim kevebachutz. So the same way all the forbidden birds whose status is the same if slaughtered inside the temple courtyard, as it is if they were slaughtered outside of it and is considered nevela. יצא שחיטת חולין בפנים וקודשים בחוץ, בין מבפנים בין מבחוץ. So as a result, consequently, the slaughter of non-sacred bird inside the temple courtyard or of sacrificial birds, whether inside or outside of it, is excluded because the status of such a birds is not the same as if they are slaughtered inside the temple courtyard as they are slaughtered outside of it. So the meat of such offering ein metabim bgadim abei tabli'ah. So they not render the garments of one who swallow ritual impure when it's in the throat. Now the Rambam said in Ilchot Avot HaTum'ot chapter 3, if one pinch a sacrificial bird outside of, or a non-sacred bird either inside or outside, the meat renders one swallow it ritually impure when it is in his throat. So the Gemarah asks, Bishlama chulin lo shavu bifnim kebarachutz. So we understand when it's come to the status of a non-sacred. Why? Because if you have chulin, if you have a non-sacred that was slaughtered outside of temple courtyard, so it's befeeding. If it's inside, they are not. That's what the Rashi said. The Mefaresh have a different view. But anyway, Ela Kodashim Idi ve'idi. When you talk about sacrificial bird, in both this case and that case, whether slaughtered inside the temple courtyard or outside of it, psulim ninu, they're disqualified. Why? That the whole din, the whole rule of korban off, it's only when it's pinched, only melika. So it means that they have the same rules if it's inside or outside. Amar Rava said that the source that slaughter a sacrificial bird outside the temple should not be derived from the pasuk at all, but rather by logic. Svara, אם הועילה לו שחיטה חוץ לחייבו כרת, לא תועיל לו טהרה מידי נבלה. If the slaughter of sacrificial bird outside the temple courtyard has sufficient effect on it as proper slaughter to render the one who slaughtered it liable to receive karet from the world to come, which is the punishment for slaughtering offering outside the temple courtyard. That's on page 107. So could it be that it does not have sufficient effect, lo to'ilu tara midei nevela, the bird proper slaughter to render it ritually pure by preventing it from assuming the status of a nevela? The Gemarah said, Ashkechan chutz, we understand, we follow the source of shchitat kodashim in outside, that they don't have the din of nevela. However, pnim menalan, how do you know that inside the temple courtyard, as they are slaughtered outside of it? So they said, Ho'il velo shavu bifnim kebachutz. Because outside he received karet if he slaughtered, and inside is not. So it's not the same. So therefore the hekesh, the juxtaposition between nevela and treifa, bring this mi'ut of nevela. The status of nevela is not applied in that sense. So Gemarah said, "Yachem malak Kodashim bachutz namelo." If that's the case, that if the Kohen pinched sacrificial bird outside the temple courtyard, they are also not considered nevela. Why? Delo shavu bifnim ki bebachutz. Because it's not the same if they are pinched inside the temple courtyard as if they are pinched outside of it. If they are pinched inside, they are fit offering, and if they are pinched outside, they are disqualified. So the conclusion would contradict the Mishnah, which rules that sacrificial birds pinched outside the temple courtyard are considered nefela as the rendered one who eats it meat impure. Amar Rav Shimi bar Ashi, דנין דבר שלא בהכשרו מדבר שלא בהכשרו, ואין דבר שלא בהכשרו מדבר שבהכשרו. So Rav Shimi bar Ashi says, one can derive the halacha to an item that is prepared not in the proper way, which is outside of the Beit HaMikdash, the sacrificial bird slaughtered outside of Beit HaMikdash, the temple courtyard, from the halacha with the item that prepared in the proper way, in a valid way, which is the sacrificial bird slaughter inside it. But one cannot derive the halacha with item that prepare not in a valid manner, which is sacrificial bird that pinched outside the Beit HaMikdash courtyard, from the halacha that item that in those who pinch inside. So you have here a situation that bird pinched outside and the bird pinch inside the Beit HaMikdash courtyard are not subject to comparison, so one cannot drive conclusions from the differences between them. Let me just read it again. אומר רב שמי בר אשי, דנים דבר שלא בהכשרו מדבר שלא בהכשרו, ואין דנים דבר שלא בהכשרו מדבר שבהכשרו. So the Gemarah asks, well, is that true that we don't do that? והתניא מניין ליוצא שימלא לא ירד. We learn in the Braita that item that emerged from the temple courtyard that was thereby disqualified, that is nevertheless ascended upon the altar, it shall not descend. שהרי יוצא כשר בבמה. Because you see that the valid sacrifice on the private altar, that disqualification was not applicable to an offering sacrifice on a private altar, as there was no Beit HaMikdash. Here the Braita derives the halacha with regard to an disqualified offering from the halacha with regard to a fit one. So the Gemarah Metaretzet explained, Tana mizot Torah riba samach le. So the Tana derived, this Braita relied from the Pasuk in Vayikra chapter 6 verse 2, this is the law of a burnt offering, to include the halacha of any that ascend, which olah upon the altar, shall not descend for it, even if it was disqualified. So the Pasuk is the actual source for the halacha of the Braita. So what you see here, that when it's come to a private altar, is cited merely just in support of this ruling. Mishnah, Malak v'nimtzet treifa. Here you have a situation that the Kohen pinched the neck of the bird's neck properly, and all of a sudden it turns to be treifa, meaning after the Melikara, she explained, we discovered that it's prior to that was treifa. You see more in Rashi in Kiddushin 57. So treifa in general is anything that the neshama tluya bo, that's prohibited to eat. So Rabbi Meir Omer eno metame bebeit habliya. Rabbi Meir says that you have this situation of kezayit and olive bark, of its meat does not make the one who swallowed it ritually impure for his throat, as the pinching prevents it from assuming the status of nevela. Page 69b. Rabbi Yehuda Omer metameh. Rabbi Yehuda said its status is like any other nevela of an unslaughtered kosher bird, and therefore the meat make one swallow it ritually impure. אומר רבי מאיר קל וחומר, אם נבלת בהמה שמטמאה במגע ומסע, שחיטתה מתארת שרפתה מטומאתה. נבלת העוף שאינו מטמא במגע ומסע, אינו דין שחיטתו מתארת שרפתו מטומאתו. That's what we said in the introduction. So, those of you who watch us, just go back to the introduction to explain the view of Rabbi Meir. מה מצינו בשחיטתו? שאם חשרתה לאכילה ומתארת שרפתו מטומאתו. אף מליקתו, שאם הכשרתו באכילה, the same with מליקה, pinching, that make the bird offering fit with regard to consumption, תהא טרפתו מידי טומאתו, so they should purify it, even if it's טרפה from its impurity. The third view, רבי יוסי אומר, דיה כנבלת בהמה. Since we derive נבלת עוף ונבלת בהמה, so he said that although one can derive from the case of an animal that slaughter renders even a bird that is treifa pure, that derivation cannot be extended to pinching. The same restriction that apply to every kal vachomer, namely that the halacha derived by means of a kal vachomer is no more stringent than the source of which is derived. So here it is sufficient for the halachic status of the nevela of a bird that is a treifa to be like of the nevela of an animal that is a treifa. Shchitata metarata velo melikata. Its slaughter make it pure, but pinching does not. So the Gemarah challenged the view of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir lo darash ledayo, vadayo deoraita. You have the principle, the yo, that it's derived from the Torah, mandated by Torah law. The Tanya Medil קל וחומר כיצד, ויאמר השם אל משה ואבי ירוק רק בפניה, קל וחומר לשכינה 14 יום, אלא דיו לה בעמיד הדין להיות כנגדו. It's sufficient for the conclusion that emerges from a קל וחומר to be like its source. אומר רבי יוסי ברבי, ברבי אבין, מה יקרא? אשכח וכדרש. We found the pasuk and interpreted it. זאת תורת הבהמה והעוף, וכי באיזו תורה שחיטתה בהמה לעוף ועוף לבהמה, בהמה מטמאה במגע ומסע, עוף אינו מטמא במגע ומסע. עוף מטמא בגדים בבית הבליעה, בהמה אינה מטמאה בגדים בבית הבליעה. אלא לומר לך, מה בהמה הדבר שמחשרתה לאכילה מתאר טרפתה מטומאתה, אף עוף דבר שמחשרתה באכילה מתאר טרפתו מטומאתו. ורבי יהודה מייתמה קרא אשכח וכדרש, נבלה מלה וטרפה. אמר רבי יהודה טרפה למה נאמרה? אם טרפה חיה הרי נבלה אמורה, אם טרפה אינה חיה הרי היא בכלל נבלה, אלא להביא טרפה שחטה שמטמאה.